And we are live. Hello and welcome to the live reality games channel for the Challenge USA Episode 3 recap. I'm Clark Wilcox.
And I'm Bossy Candy Bars.
And today we are joined by the Reelfoot legend extraordinaire, one of the faces of LRGs. You've seen him in quite a few LRGs. Please give it up for Parker Barnett. Hi, Parker.
Hey, Clark. Hey, Bossy. Wow, what an introduction. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So, what have you been up to the last couple months or so? Any interesting news for us?
Yeah, so just back in June, we did the 10th season of Reelfoot. I really enjoyed. I think a lot of people enjoyed that one, and very excited about that. And then just personally, just been nothing but work lately for me.
I feel you there. I've been working like crazy, and I definitely enjoyed watching and following along with Reelfoot season 10 as a season 8 alum.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So how are you feeling about this season of the challenge? We're going into episode 3 right now, but how are you feeling about the cast, the first 2 episodes? Any thoughts that you have?
Thanks. No, so I want to be honest. When I first heard that CBS was doing this, I wasn't that excited. I'll be honest. I was like, I don't think the challenge is the type of CBS show, right? You know, it's very
Right.
It's just, MTV has a vibe and CBS has a different vibe,
Mm-hmm.
So when I heard that they were going to translate that and put CBS alum on it, I was like, I don't know. But then I heard TJ was going to host, and then I heard that they were going to do a lot of the similar challenges that we see on MTV The Challenge. I was like, okay, maybe this will be fun, but I was still skeptical. And these first few episodes, I think I was wrong. Now, still, do I prefer the original? Yes, but this is not like as cringe and as superficial as I thought it was going to be. When I heard the idea, I thought it was complete sellout, and maybe it will be bad later on. I don't know, but so far I've enjoyed it for the most part. I've enjoyed the challenges and the cast they've had, and I've enjoyed it quite a bit so far, I would say.
Yeah, I've definitely enjoyed it also. I would say, like, since it's the first season, like any first season, it's going to have its sort of kinks to work out,
Right.
Especially moving over to CBS. So they're just trying to pick up what sort of vibe they're going for. So I think if this were to continue, and I think it does have the potential to
I agree.
have future seasons after this, especially since you have a bevy of CBS reality shows to sort of work off from. And I think they're going to be like more beyond Survivor, Big Brother, The Amazing Race,
right?
Maybe some Tough as Nails representation in there.
Mhm.
But I think this does have the potential for future seasons. And I think that with this being season 1, this is the perfect opportunity to sort of realize, hey, what works and what doesn't going forward.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. So we are going into episode 3. Just a reminder, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, we highlight questions and we make sure to answer them throughout the podcast and the recap. So please make sure to leave some comments, leave some questions, and we'll make sure to share them throughout the podcast. Also, make sure to like, subscribe, and follow the Live Reality Games channel. You never know what live reality games are going to pop up, which ones are casting, which ones are being run. So make sure to like, subscribe, and follow the Live Reality Games channel. So once again, I have my page full of notes about episode 3. So I rewatched the episode in full detail, and we will be pouring it over in detail.
Classic Clark.
Yeah. So we start out with episode 3, and we start out with a couple of confessionals. First confessional of the episode is from Alyssa, and she's discussing the algorithm. Now, we've seen the algorithm in detail the first couple episodes, but now that we are sort of seeing these shifting partnerships, what do you all think about how the algorithm is going so far?
I like the algorithm, but sometimes, like we said last week on show, I do feel like sometimes the partners are rigged.
I agree. I like it sometimes. I think it's kind of akin to like a tribe swap in a Survivor season in a sense, because sometimes you can get just the wrong partner and get really unlucky. which is what happened last week, with Tiffany's partner. Just was unfortunate. But I agree. I think the algorithm definitely allows them to tamper with the pairs that they want to see.
Yeah, and we mentioned that with the previous recap. With Cache and Cinco, we were like, we knew that this was going to be happening immediately. I think that the teams for this challenge seemed pretty balanced, but I think there were opportunities for potential drama and potentially the players that production is looking out for the most to set them up with good partners for that challenge. So that's sort of what we're thinking about the algorithm, but we'll go into the episode to see how it goes. So we have the 12 pairs that are sort of established. So the first 4 are David and Shannon, Kyland and Angela, Derek and Shan, and Ben and Kira. And we get a confessional from Kyland describing Angela as a partner. Now, this season is hyping Angela up. She's definitely been a tour de force in this season. She's the one that every guy wants. So thoughts about Angela?
Yeah, I think Angela and Tyson's definitely the two dominant names this season. And it's just funny how, I mean, we didn't really get there yet, but Angela and Tyson just won every daily for the last 3 episodes. So they might as well hype her up. I mean, she's doing something right.
Yeah, it's not a pair that on paper, when I looked at the cast when the first episode happened, I wouldn't necessarily put Tyson's personality with Angela's, but just given their track record in these competitions, I'm not surprised they would want to team up. So no, they're definitely a lot nicer to Angela than they were on her season of Big Brother, where they were calling her the Ice Queen and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think this season is definitely like showcasing Angela's strengths fully. Like, we saw that she was a competition beast in Big Brother, but this is just showcasing Angela's all-around game, her social game, her strategic game, her physical game to a T. And it's been really great to watch. And I agree with Parker. Like, it's interesting to watch Tyson and Angela sort of interact because they do seem like they have quite different personalities, but it's their physical games that have brought them together.
Right.
So then we have the next 4 duos announced, and it's Enzo and Desi, Dominic and Cache, Danny and Azah, and Xavier and Kayla. And this episode really highlights Dominic and Cache. And we'll talk about their relationship throughout the episode because I think we have a lot of comments about that. But Dominic and Cache, especially Dominic, who hasn't really gotten much airtime up until this point, he really gets a lot of airtime this episode, and you can really see Dominic and Cache. So in just a moment, we'll discuss their relationship. The last 4 are Tyson and Alyssa, Cinco and Sarah, Leo and Justine, and James and Tasha. So when you saw the 12 duos announced, what were your initial thoughts watching the episode?
I really didn't have any thoughts, but I did feel like Cinco and Sarah was going to be one they wasn't going to bother.
I was curious based on, the last episode, Shan was all over that one. So I was curious to see how she would do with Derek. There's been some comments in the last few episodes, Derek's not one of the bigger guys in the house. Not that he's not a good competitor, but he's one of the smaller guys. And Shan's one of the smaller girls. So I was like, okay, you got one of these smaller girls, one of the smaller guys, and Shan was very vocal in the last episode. So I was like, is this going to be bad for Shan? We'll just have to see. That was the one that stuck out to me.
Yeah, and I feel like for these first couple challenges so far, they haven't really had any big, strong challenges, like super physical challenges or super physical eliminations. Like, they haven't had a hall brawl yet. So there have been some elements of strength necessary, like with the first elimination and not so fast. But these first few challenges and eliminations have really been about speed and agility and communication. And oddly enough, for 2 out of 3 dailies, words and wordplay. So I feel like Derek and Shan were a strong duo, especially going into this challenge. It wasn't super physical. I mean, there was running, but it wasn't very strength-based. So this week really favored agility and speed and communication. Now, we have a confessional from Dominic, and he's noticed a recurring trend with his partners. Every single one up until this point has been a girl from Love Island. Thoughts about that?
I want to say that it's rigged for him, but then I don't think so with that, because it's just like, why would they rig Dominic? And then the Love Island girls are, well, then again, maybe it could be because Love Island is like the topic of conversation right now, like as far as the girls go. So they think they're weak, put them together with somebody and see what happens. That's the way I look at it. I don't know. I think it could be on just the trick of the trade, but I think it's rigged. I don't think he accidentally got 3 Love Island girls back to back. I think they wanted something out of him, so they put him with one of them to get it out of him.
And I think the algorithm itself allows us to see personalities that either could get along really well or clash, as we saw in this episode. And, Dominic hasn't been a big part of the first 2. Obviously, he was all over this one. But if you look at Dominic in his season of Survivor, he was a big personality. And we haven't really got to see that until this episode. So I think that's part of where the conflict comes from, because Dominic is such a strong personality being paired with these Love Island girls who he on paper has nothing in common with them, right? So yeah. I think it was only a matter of time before it came to fruition. I don't know why it happened with Cachet necessarily, but that's just what happened.
Yeah, I noticed, especially within the first 2 episodes, they really haven't had a whole lot of drama. So maybe they've just been continuing this trend of Love Island girls because they're like, okay, we need to get some drama. We need to get like a fight happening or some sort of clash between 2 people. And we finally got that this episode, and we'll go into more detail about it later on.
Right, because I want to say the Love Island girls have been delivering.
Yeah,
and they're still technically delivering. They're still a part of the drama.
Yeah, I mean, even though I feel like they are close together, they are the ones when it comes to the strategic game and the socializing. Love Island is there. They're the ones that are delivering the juicy drama. Like you get Survivor and Big Brother, and they're playing to their TV show. It's
like when Love Island girls, or even some of the guys come on the screen, I just feel like I'm watching a challenge. But when the other ones come on there, like when Survivor come on there, I be feeling like I'm watching Survivor or something too serious sometimes. So I don't know. I just feel like the Love Island girls, like you said, have definitely been part of everything that's juicy.
And in terms of just the game and where the alliances were stand, I think, we're kind of waiting for the shoe to drop and who's going to be the first one to take a shot at their show, right? Mm-hmm. And I think the Love Island girls they have the shot at being, if one of the show, if not the show that sticks together the most, right? They have a shot. However, obviously, they had their issues with the Love Island guys. So, and Cinco was still there, but I would say the Love Island show as a whole is more likely to be loyal with each other than, say, Big Brother or Survivor or Amazing Race.
Mm-hmm. So then we get a couple confessionals after that. We get one with Sarah, who says she's happy to be partnered with Cinco. Like they are 2 of the more physical competitors on the cast. So Sarah's happy to work with Cinco. And then you go back to the house and you see Leo, James, and Kayla together. And they bring back up the Amazing Race connection. And that, going into this episode, is also one of the bigger topics. This is something that is discussed when it comes to later on in the episode. So all 3 of them have been able to stick together up to this point, but James and Kayla were just in the elimination last episode. So you can really see at the beginning of the episode, those 3 were trying to stay tight and stick together. and then you have Derek and Shan sort of bonding over how they played in their previous seasons, and then Derek highlighting the Shantham. Thoughts on Derek and Shan and them working together while also highlighting their previous game experiences?
I didn't really watch Survivor, but I do know that Shan is pretty delusional because, girl, you have a song named after you. How don't you know that? And then you talking about you're telling vital information and all this other stuff. A lot of that information that she was telling is kind of irrelevant. And then as far as Derek and her working together, I mean, I guess I don't really have nothing. No comment on that.
It's another pair. I'm surprised they could find similarities in their gameplay because I don't think they played the same at all. Like Shan was very much get close to people and cut them when necessary. Derek was a very loyal player, to a fault. So I was surprised to see they found commonalities over that. But no, I mean, Shan, I think Derek saw what happened last week, and now he's with Shan. So I think he's definitely just trying to, have a relationship, have a friendship, because I think he's afraid, if he makes Shan upset, she may pull the trigger on him. So I think Derek was definitely trying to hold his cards close to his chest with Shan.
So I was thinking about it a little bit, and I was thinking about the Shantham, and I was like, okay, what does this Shantham sound like? Because these 6 notes of Shan humming sound a little bit familiar. And it sounds to me a little bit it sounds a little Wizard of Oz to me. When they're in Oz and they're like, the very beginning sounds like the Wizard of Oz.
Right.
And I'm wondering if that is where the Shantham came from, if it's like a love of Wizard of Oz. It could just be me. I could just be ridiculous right now, overthinking.
I don't think nothing be in her head. I think that's just her way of telling her. I don't think it'd be nothing for her. I think that's just her way of telling herself, look, you about to betray people and you're about to lie on people. So let me just sing this song so I don't feel bad about it.
I do like the juxtaposition. I like the juxtaposition, Clark, of the very child family-friendly Wizard of Oz to Shan destroying, people's chances at life-changing amount of money.
Yeah.
I like that juxtaposition.
I love it too. So then we go into Shan. She discusses alliances between shows. So we see that Survivor sticking with Survivor, Big Brother sticking with Big Brother, but Shan is wanting to branch off and work with other shows. And obviously at this point, knowing the algorithm and knowing this format, you really have to start working with other shows. Tyson and Angela are working together. So now we see Shan sort of starting to build that bond to work with Big Brother and Love Island competitors. That's really all we get from that. Then we see Tasha and James talking. And up until this point, we haven't seen a whole lot of Tasha. So now we start to see Tasha, and we see that she's noticing as the game is going to progress, there is going to be less and less stick to your show mentality. So to sort of cycle back to Shan working with other shows, how do you all feel about eventually the game is going to progress and people are going to be less and less likely to just say Survivor stick Survivor strong, Big Brother stick Big Brother strong?
That kind of takes me back to James, working with James on the Amazing Race Alliance, because James was, a lot of this episode was him debating if he wanted to turn on them or not, for real. So I think it is kind of smart to kind of branch off after a while. I mean, with James, to me, I feel like he should have been did it. There's only 3 of y'all. Well, not turn on them, but branch off. But I don't know. I guess it's smart to branch off. I think you just need to be a little more strategic on who you branch off with.
Mm-hmm.
If it makes sense.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And well, for viewers' sake, it's good because just potentially watching one show take out all the others, wouldn't be that interesting. So it's a win for the viewers. But just in terms of the game, I mean, you're not going to get along with every single person from your show. I mean, maybe you will, like, in a very general sense. Oh, I like these people, but do you really want to go with them to the end? You know, do you really trust them, you know, with your life in the game? So it's like I said earlier, it's just when the shoe's going to drop, and it looks like we're getting close to that point, if not already being there.
Yeah, I feel like people are wanting, like, it's still very early on. People are wanting to play the easy game. They're just going to make the easy move, and they're just going to try and make it through round by round. But eventually, people are going to start to realize, hey, these people that were on the same show as me are bigger threats than me. And it's all about keeping that threat visible and in front of you until it is the right time to strike. So hopefully that is soon. We will be talking a little bit more about James's gameplay this episode later on, because after the challenge, that definitely was a large focus. And I have quite a things to say about the strategy this episode. So after Tasha, James mentions he wants to work more with the Survivor Alliance, and he sees Survivor as the strongest group in this competition. So thoughts about that? I think we may be on the same page about Survivor being the ones with the biggest advantage in this season, but thoughts in general about wanting to work with Survivor.
I agree with them. Do what you gotta do to get yourself further in the game. I mean, Survivor has won like the first 3 dailies besides Angela and James. So if I wouldn't be worried about females, I would be worried about males. So I work with Tyson and Survivor. They got all the physical players over there too as well. So yeah, smart.
I agree as well. Like I said earlier, that I thought the Love Island girls would stick together and vote together, but I think Survivor as a whole is the strongest show to beat. I think they're the most prepared. They have a lot of physical competition threats in that side, and I mean, they've played this game. I mean, they've done challenges. They lie and deceit on their show. It's kind of second nature for them. So I think he's making the right instinct call to want to work with them.
So after that, we see Tyson and Angela sort of discussing together, and they really lay out what they want in terms of a strategy, which is having strong partners for dailies, and that they want to oust the weaker players because they do not want to be partnered with them. Thoughts on this strategy?
That was smart thinking. I mean, if you're not scared to battle with the strongest people, then that's smart thinking. Get rid of all of them to make sure make sure that you don't get a weak partner, to make sure that you can get to the end.
Yeah, and it is the smart strategy. I almost rolled my eyes because I'm like, how many times in these shows have we heard, I want to go with the strongest to the end? And I have nothing against that strategy. It's just we always hear people say they want to do that, but then they're like, this is such a large amount of money. Why would I not take the people who I think I can beat to the end, right? Yeah. Now, in fairness, the format of the challenge makes it more likely the best of the best will make the end, just because of the, elimination factor. So I could see it happening regardless of people want. I just find it amusing because I'm like, Tyson, I don't think you're the type of guy who wants to go to the end with the strongest. You just don't give me that vibe. I've seen all your seasons of Survivor, but it would be nice to see. I wouldn't hate seeing that.
Yeah, like Tyson play with honor and integrity. Like what? Not the vibe we're going for.
No,
but yeah, you see it every so often. Like, oh, I want to keep strong people in the game and vote off the weak, and I'm like.
Right.
Okay, that's boring.
Right.
I get that you want to play with honor and integrity, but you look at this cast and you want to make it to the finale, and I feel like this is a great strategy for Tyson and Angela because they are the ones to beat.
Yes.
But if
I just want to say, I would definitely be doing it the opposite way. It would be strong people out. So, because I'm not trying to hold brawl, nobody from Survivor. So yeah.
But you hit on the head, though, Clark. If you're Tyson and Angela, who are seen as the biggest threats, you want the other strong competitors to stick together. That's a good strategy for them. It's almost like the Shield strategy in a sense from Survivor.
Mhm.
But if you're the other competitors who are not Tyson and Angela, why would you want that?
Yeah. So then now we start to see Dom and Cash, and we see one confessionals where they're both highlighting each other's weaknesses. But then you also have Cache thinking about the Cinco drama, and Dom is like, I want no part of that. Like, I don't care. So thoughts on Dom and Cash. We're going to talk about them a little bit more. But they had two confessionals where they were just like, they're just talking about each other's weaknesses and what they're not good at as opposed to what they are good at. So thoughts in general.
You got anything to say about that one, Bossy?
Bossy, you there?
On, my bad. Yeah, of course, I got something to say about that. My computer breaking up, but if y'all hear me right now, I was so annoyed with Cache still talking about Cinco. So this gonna be the best book she ever read. Girl, let it go. The chapter is closed. The door is closed. So I was Team Damo with his confessionals on that.
Yeah, it was just, I get where Dom's coming from. Even Cash a little bit, you know, I can't imagine being trapped in a pressure cooker with your ex on national TV. That's not an enjoyable situation, I think, for anybody. But I understood Dom's frustration as well. Like, we can't be it's a mental game, right? You cannot be mentally not up to your best right before a competition, especially knowing last place is automatically going in anyway. So I understood his frustration. I think he maybe could have communicated that better and maybe just kept it solely to the confessional rather than telling her his frustrations. But I definitely understood where he was coming from.
I will say, I do think I know where Cache is coming from, just in terms of a production standpoint, because if she continues to bring up this Cinco drama, she's getting airtime for sure.
True.
So regardless of, she keeps bringing this up, and it's like, yes. Oh my gosh, like, will you just close the book and let it go? It's airtime. Like, she is getting airtime, and she is a part of the story and a part of the drama. So she's going to continue to milk that.
Biggest characters on the show right now.
Oh yeah, all of them have done this before. Once, some of them multiple times, and it would not surprise me at all if they know what the producers want to hear. They want those sound bites. So if any part of it was intentional on her part, I would not be surprised.
So now we go into the daily challenge, and this daily is Hang On Man. First off, I do want to mention the environment in which they're in, I thought was so cool. I was like, this is brand new. Like, they are in an abandoned theme park working and doing this challenge. And I was like, I just thought that was neat. It's different. I thought that was fun. What did you think about having an abandoned theme park?
I was like, oh, we got something new going on today. I agree with that. That's what I was thinking. So I was like, is this new? Because I never seen this before.
You know, I mean, you see one mud pit, you see them dangling in the air thousands of feet up. You've seen it all. So I think it was nice.
Yeah, it's unique. It's different. So I appreciated that. So for this daily challenge, each pair will have to run a large distance to collect these steps. And these steps are used, they're sort of like a puzzle, and you assemble these steps together so that you are able to climb up on top of this crate. And on this crate is a balance beam. So once your steps are assembled, one person is going to be on the balance beam, the other runs back to a hangman puzzle. And they have to guess a letter towards their puzzle. If they're correct, then they get that letter on their puzzle exposed. If they're wrong, they have to bring a 10-pound sandbag, bring it back to their partner on the balance beam, and they have a rod. So they have to put that 10-pound bag on the rod. And if any of the sandbags touch the ground, or if the person on the balance beam drops, that team is DQ'd automatically. So the first team to solve their puzzle completely, bring one final sandbag back, and put it on top of the crate wins this daily challenge. Thoughts about this challenge?
It was a lot going on. A lot going on.
I'll say it's different. It's unique. It is something we have not seen in a challenge game before. I do find it interesting that they had 2-word challenges, 2-word dailies back to back. The one thing that I was like a little iffy on was the fact that each team had a different puzzle to solve, which I get in terms of cheating and not wanting each team to have the same puzzle. So then it's just like, if one team's in front of you, you're just going to copy off of them.
Right.
But the fact that each team had a different puzzle to solve, that just made it seem like each team did not have the same level playing field to work off of.
Right.
So thoughts about that?
Yeah, I agree. It could be like, I agree with that. I think it could be a little bit unfair in a way because, like I said, I do think production say so and all of this stuff. So you don't know what they're giving the other easiest puzzles in the world, the easiest letters to find or whatever, and while everyone else has a hard, puzzle to finish. So yeah, I agree with you on that.
Yeah, I also thought it was a point you made a second ago, Clark. I thought it was a bit odd they had a second word-based daily back-to-back. Now, I get it. There's only so many competitions you can do, especially as many as these guys do.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes there may be similar ones back-to-back. I was just surprised to be this early on. You kind of expect those more in the mid part of the game, maybe late part of the game. Definitely wasn't a bad challenge. I enjoyed it, but I agree. There may have, in each word puzzle had a different country. So, perhaps it was a more well-known country than other countries that we're in. Because it's, there was 12 different pairs, competing. So that's a lot of different ones. So there could have been some imbalance there. But overall, I enjoyed it. Definitely one that I'm happy I'm on the other side of the screen, not there. Because that running would have killed me.
Yeah, I'm like, the last challenge, I was like, oh, I could do this. Like, swimming, making words with letters. I'm like, I could do this. This one, I'm like, my fat ass could not run that far. I'm like, put me on the balance beam.
If they cancel out the running, maybe I do it. But I ain't trying to run too much. I can run, but I ain't trying to run too much and carry stuff. So, yeah.
And they got to the end of the competition, right? They solved the phrase, and then they had to run back again. I literally, when I watched it, I was like yelling loud. I'm like, they have to run again.
Yeah,
they can't just win right there.
Yeah. So when we start the challenge, we see Derek and Shan vibing to the Shantham. I thought that was fun. And then another fun moment was Tyson and Angela, and Tyson is mentioning. There are a lot of people in this house that'll say, oh, they'll bike 12 miles and be super proud of that. And Tyson's like, that's not even a warm up. And then Alyssa was like, yeah, that was me. And I was like, I like those fun, spontaneous, stupid moments. And I want to see more of those. So then we get Shannon's first confessional of the episode, and she's mentioning that David and her could be targets because David does not have a lot of social connections in this game. And we've talked about David quite a bit on this recap, and we'll talk about him a little bit more. But thoughts in general about David and Shannon potentially being targets for this round?
That would have been the easiest choice, because David is clearly right now a weak player. Shannon is pretty good, but she's one of the weaker girls. So I can see where Shannon is coming from. They definitely would have been on my radar if I was going into elimination. So yeah.
Big Brother in general is the show right now that I feel like has the least reason for them all to stick together because they all have conflicting motivations, right? You've got the Cookout members, Ozza, Xavier, and Kylan. That's a target from the other people, not even just from Big Brother. You've got Derek and Alyssa, who, they would like to see them go at some point. And Angela, who's she's not, I mean, she's with them, but like she's doing her own thing with Tyson, right? So they just have all this conflict. And then you've got David, who, and I said this to my friend who I've been watching the episodes with, I'm like, there's going to come a point in time where every show has that person or two who, if they need to go into the elimination, the rest of the show members are going to be fine. Like they're just going to sacrifice them if they can't save them or not. And that person's going to be David. I fully believe there's going to come a time where they'll be fine with sacrificing David for one reason or another. And Enzo, he's kind of in that position too in terms of competition, but I have much more confidence in Enzo's social ability than David's. Enzo is a really solid social player, whereas David, I'm not saying he can't have a good social game, but given his track record, I'm not holding my breath.
Right.
So at the end of the recap, what I usually do is after rewatching the episode, I go through every single competitor that did not have a single confessional in that round or in that episode. So I'll go through that at the end because I feel like you really see like who are the narrators, who are the drivers of this season, who is production focused on, and who could they not care about.
Right.
So we'll talk about that a little bit. We see Sarah having a confessional, and she's noticing that there are people already walking in this running competition, and the camera pans immediately over to Tasha, which I was like, damn. Yeah. So then they have a confessional from Tasha, and she's like, this is a marathon, not a sprint. And you have that confessional quite a bit. You see, this is a marathon, not a sprint. You want to keep your energy. And then we get confessionals from Ben. And Ben has been pretty like under the radar. Ben has been pretty quiet this season, and he's just raving about Kira. And this is the first really this season where we're like, oh, Kira's a competitor, Kira's a contender. And Ben is raving about Kira, and then has the strategy in the challenge once they finally solve the puzzle to use the Wheel of Fortune strategy and just go with those RSTLNE letters. Thoughts about some of those?
With the Tasha situation, we were just talking about confessionals, and I always say this every episode. When your confessionals pick up and you have a go at it, you pretty much are about to go home. So with this particular episode and the particular partner that she had, I kind of knew how this was going to go based on the way they were editing it. Like they showed her walking. She hadn't had confessionals in the last couple of episodes. So yeah, I kind of knew how that was going to play out. With Ben, with the ghost edit, I don't know. I guess I was just happy to see him talking because I don't really see him that much. So I don't know. I guess it was something new to me because I just be forgetting he's there. Like Ben and Enzo are two people that I forget are there sometimes.
It was nice to hear Ben hype up Kira as much as he was, because a lot in the first episode, even a little bit in the second episode, there's been all this talk about how, and even in this episode from Dominic, there's a lot of talk about how these girls from Love Island, they're not taking it seriously, they're not strong competitors, and yet here's Ben hyping up one of them as a solid competitor. So I thought that was a nice change of pace, because to act like none of them are tough competitors at all would be false.
You're right. Yeah. Because they've been doing really good. Justine won, right. And Kira been doing her thing, getting hyped up by Ben. Cachet is all over our screen, and she's not bad a competitor either, except for swimming, or dropping into the water. But and then Shannon did pretty good on her challenge as well. So they're not that bad to me.
Yeah. So Then, as the challenge is progressing, we sort of see Kyland and Angela are the first team to assemble their steps, and then James and Tasha are bringing up the rear, like they're the last team to sort of assemble their steps. And then we get another confessional from Danny, and I feel like this is going to become a challenge drinking game. So, a little deviation. So, I have this chat with Jake Sparks. And we have a little drinking game right now for Big Brother. Whenever somebody says the words, as a Big Brother super fan, or as a super fan of Big Brother, now we're going to get one with Danny. And he's like, my wife Kiki is going to kill me. And I'm like, Danny, I like you a lot. Please stop bringing up your wife. That is my drinking game right now. Whenever he says the words, my wife Kiki, I'm like, take a shot. Done. Thoughts on that?
I'm just waiting for the t-shirt. If he says it enough, it'll happen.
I guess Kylan and Angela, I expected that. Like I just said, Tasha and James, I expected that. I think we could come up with a whole lot of drinking games for this challenge. I think we can come up with the Shantham drinking game. We can come up with a whole lot of drinking games. You just gotta have me.
Cache and Cinco drama.
Oh my God, yes. Every time Cache bring up Cinco or somebody talks about Cache and Cinco, take a motherfucking shot.
Every time Danny brings up his wife Kiki, I swear, if Danny is at Hearts of Reality, I just want to get like a shirt that says "My wife Kiki." So I've mentioned teams having different puzzles. Now, who we do see is James gets a letter wrong and brings a 10-pound bag over to Tasha. And literally, like right as James hooks the bag onto Tasha's rod, it immediately falls. And they are the only team DQ'd from the challenge. And they are going into elimination for sure. So then Tasha feels a little bit let down. She didn't want to let James down. So thoughts about James going into his second elimination in a row, but then also James and Tasha losing this challenge.
I kind of feel bad because Tasha had mentioned earlier in the episode that I will carry anything for you, James, and she didn't. So I kind of feel bad about that. I kind of feel bad about that. And then James, his I feel like his journey to a close early regardless because it's only 3 amazing races. But I feel like, I don't know. I really don't know how to feel about that. I just know James will be back. I don't know about Tasha coming back, but I know James will be back.
It's hard to watch because all 3 of the amazing racers are underdogs, if not the biggest underdogs, just given how few of them there are, and especially James. I mean, he went to elimination last time. He was on the bubble of going in the very first week. So no matter what, the guy couldn't catch a break. And and you know, there's more to say about James later on, but it was tough to see. He was really happy. He was really hoping not to have to go back in, and of course, what happens?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then we see it is towards the end of the challenge, and the final 2 teams are Kylan and Angela and Ben and Kira. And Ben and Kira are like super excited, like, oh, we're almost about to win. And then come to find out, Kylan and Angela are the first to bring the sandbag back to the crate and end up winning this challenge. So then they proceed. We go into Kylan and Angela have won. James and Tasha are going in, and now we go back to the house. And Tyson and Angela bring up some potential team names to target some of the weaker teams. So they specifically mention David and Shannon and Dominic and Cache. So thoughts about Kylan and Angela winning, but then the strategy and then those 2 particular teams being highlighted.
Oh.
Bossy?
Uh-oh. I'll just say real quick.
Mhm.
First of all, I just want to once again not to go back to David, but I was like, it's a good thing David is Big Brother, because I really think that's a large part of why David has been saved up to this point, because he's Big Brother, right? But
Mhm.
also, it was tough because the strategy that led up to it ultimately is what ends up happening between James and Leo, because I think James has the right idea. He's trying to save himself, but it does not come across well at all in communication. And I know you have a lot to say about that, Clark, as do I, but it was just it was tough. I felt like we were basically there wasn't a lot of hope for James in this situation from the get-go, and it just from the immediate strategy conversations from that section of the episode, it became very apparent very fast.
My computer was messing up. What was the question again? Like, what
It
was
was
like
about-
the end of the question?
Yeah, it was basically about Kylan and Angela winning the challenge, and then Tyson and Angela talking about which of the weaker teams to put in, like between Dom and Cash, David and Shannon. Just thoughts in general.
And they put in James and Tasha. They put in Cache and Dom, right?
Yeah, but they're discussing about putting in a weaker team, and they bring up Dom and Cash and David and Shannon.
And you want me to talk about how I feel about them picking Dom and Cash over Shannon and David, right?
Yeah. If you have any thoughts about it.
So, I mean, my thoughts about it, I mean, I guess it was a good decision in a way, because Shannon and David are like a weaker team. So if you put these two teams together, you might get one of those out and keep David and Shannon, I guess. I guess that's the way I would look at it.
Yeah. And we'll discuss it a little bit later on, like when it comes closer to the elimination, because I have some sort of thoughts about that. We do get a confessional from Justine about Leo, and basically says Leo is a sweet person, but does not have much of a social game. Which I mean, just based on what the episode is saying, Leo is very Amazing Race strong, Amazing Race stick together, but we really haven't seen that many confessionals or that much in episodes up to this point about Leo reaching out to other shows. Now, James mentions that he wants to go into an elimination against Justine and Leo. Now, the reasoning for that in the episode is James wants Justine's money because Justine just won the last challenge and is at $6,000 now. That's the reasoning that's mentioned in the episode. I'm going to share my thoughts about that real quick. I'm curious as to why in the episode, James mentions that his focus is to put them in because of money. It is episode 3. It is way too early to start thinking about the final. Like, you have however many people in the house that have not won a damn thing, and you're thinking about the final in episode 3. So money should not be a factor at this point, because you could literally win one challenge towards the end and qualify for the final. My thinking is, as a Survivor fan, and Parker as a Survivor fan, I was thinking that James was... Are you familiar with the intentional Matt Sing?
I am.
Okay. So I'm thinking that James is trying to pull an intentional Matt Sing.
I can see that.
He's trying to get Leo out to try and weaken the Amazing Race numbers so that nobody really sees them as a threat. And he and Kayla are able to just skate by. And nobody really sees them. So when you look at Survivor Philippines, you see Denise and Malcolm, and they just lose challenge after challenge after challenge after challenge. And then they're able to make it all the way to the final 4 because nobody sees them as a threat. There are only 2 of them. So I was thinking, as a gamer and a strategist, that is the strategy that James is trying to go for, because it is episode 3. Why are you trying to think about building up your bank account? If you're thinking about building up your bank account, Tyson, Kylan, Angela. So thoughts about that?
First of all, I don't even think he should have been thinking that far ahead. And the reason I say that is because you didn't even win any type of power yet. You're not even even like somebody that everyone is intimidated in the slightest. So yeah, I'm gonna agree. It's only episode 3. It's too early for you to be doing that, and maybe he should have waited a while if he stayed in the house a little bit longer. Waited till he won power and then tried to do that.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. I think the money thing is way too soon. There's going to be so many rounds after this before the final. There'll be many opportunities. Yeah, I agree with you, Clark. If that was the thought of, okay, if Leo goes, maybe that's not the worst thing, because maybe we'll be seen as even less of a threat than we already are. Me and Kayla, that kind of makes sense to me. I think where we see the clashes obviously is the perception is Leo is not playing a very strategic or social game. He's just very
there.
Amazing Race. Yeah, he's there. He's very Amazing Race and competition strong, which, I mean, that is what the Amazing Race show is. There's not a lot of strategy and social component. But if that was James's intent, I can see the logic there. But what we see in the episode, again, maybe that's just what the producers want us to see, was I'm money focused. And obviously that makes it sound like James is trying to count his chickens before they hatch.
Exactly. So then we go into the deliberation, and James and Tasha, mainly the two teams that they want are Dom and Cash or Leo and Justine. But then we start to get confessionals about Dom, and he's sort of ready to go in. He's like, I'm ready to prove myself. I'm ready to go. But the way it appears in the episode, it looks like Dom is checked out. Like if he goes in, he goes in. He's not really pleading his case. He's sort of feeling a bit defeated and just ready to go in. And I will say, Dom does he comes across as a bit of a dick to Cash. He's walking away. They're having a fight, and then he just goes to Cinco, and like Dom and Cash just had this fight. He walks away. He's ready for them to go in, and he just looks to Cinco, and he's like, "She's so smart. She's so smart," about Cash not wanting to go in immediately. And I'm like, that's just skeezy. Like that's gross to like to just talk trash about your partner to her ex.
I personally feel like all that he was doing was a defense mechanism to take away from the fact that he was worried about getting sent home. So like you said, he was checked out and he was like, I'm over it. So everything else that he was doing was just to take away from him taking accountability that I'm about to go into elimination. So he was trying to put it more so on, oh my God, I'm with Love Island girl. Oh my gosh, she's so smart, being sarcastic, when really it's you that's checked out. And really in the elimination, she did more than you. So
I definitely got the vibe that he was in a headspace where he's like, hey, if we win, great. If I go home, is it really the worst thing in the world? I don't want to accuse him of quitting. I think that was definitely his mindset. No, he was, I mean, that's the Dom we saw in Ghost Island. That's, he's very competitive, and I think that's what cost him the win to Wendell ultimately at the end of the day. I think he can rub people the wrong way, and well, these comments are him doing that in this show too.
He's got a combative personality, I will say.
Basically, yeah.
I'm not going to lie though, I was cracking up laughing because I thought it was so funny that he was saying that she's so smart. I thought that was so funny.
So then we get to the elimination challenge, and it involves some sort of water. So the challenge is called Plug and Play. So how it works is one member of each pair is going to be submerged in this tank, and chained in the tank are these like rock blocks, like 13 or 14 of them. So you have to unchain these blocks, toss them over the tank to your partner, and their partner has to stack all 14 of these blocks. All the while, water is going to be draining from the tank, and there's a line. So if there is less water, like if the water crosses the line, then that team is DQ'd and they're out. So the first team to lose all of their water is out, or the first team to stack all 14 of their blocks wins the challenge. And then we see Kyland and Angela do vote in Dom and Cash, and they say it is the easy decision. Cinco remarks a little bit about Cash being voted into an elimination and about the status of their relationship. So it is James and Tasha and Dom and Cash. Before we go into the actual elimination, thoughts about the challenge in general?
I like that. I like this elimination. I want to see more of this elimination. I like when they got to do stuff in the tank.
I agree. This was definitely a unique one. The water. Anytime there's water on these shows, any of these shows, I enjoy it. And the stacking the blocks, definitely. I know it's one of those few times on the show where I thought to myself, "Oh, I can do that at home," knowing that I can't do a single one of these challenges. But it was one of those I tricked myself into believing maybe I could do that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we start to see both of these teams go in. So they're pretty even up to this point, but James is more focused about blocking the drain. So James is like sat on the drain, like put his foot on the drain. So James is doing a great job at making sure water does not spill out. Dom is doing the exact opposite and just letting it free flow out of the tank. But Dom and Cash are ahead of James and Tasha in terms of getting the blocks out and getting them stacked. And Tasha is, just based on what we saw, was really taking her sweet time with trying to get these blocks stacked. So it's a race against time. And we see that with Dom's tank, the water is just dripping and dripping and dripping. And you get these confessionals from other competitors like, Dom, why are you not blocking the drain? Why are you just letting this water pour out? So Dom and Cash have a bit of a lead. Cash is doing a great job of the stacking. And then right as the water has there's just an inch above the line, Cash is able to stack all 14 blocks and they narrowly win the challenge. Thoughts on the final result of Dom and Cash winning by the narrowest of margins?
Well, first, let's get into some tea, because on Twitter, Dom and Cache was definitely going back and forth. And Dom credited Cinco for that win when it was really Cache, but he came back and cleared it up. And he was basically just like he couldn't hear in the tank, and he thought that Cinco was the one telling her what to do and this, that, and the third, or whatever the case may be. So my thoughts on that is Dom really needs to thank Cache for saving his ass, because they was about to be out because of him not plugging the drain. Like, how can you miss that one particular important step? It's a drain in there. You have water around you. Like, are you not drowning? You're supposed to be drowning right now. Plug it back up.
The confusing part of it for me, thinking about what Dom might have been thinking, was I understand maybe not paying as much attention to the water when you're trying to get the blocks out, but he wasn't plugging the water up when the blocks were all out and Cash was stacking. Like, what else is there for him to do? He was just watching, cheering her. Like, the water didn't pause once he was done, right? It was still going. So if I'm Dom, I'm thinking all I'm going to do now is plug up this water. Otherwise I'm just standing here looking like an idiot. And that's what happened. So I just couldn't, again, I understand these situations are high pressure, but that just seemed like such a rookie mistake to me.
And part of me is wishing that in the elimination challenge, because the result was so close, I wish we had gotten a close-up camera of how close it was. Because there were some angles where it was like there was just a little bit of water above the line. Next, it was like it was at the line. Like, it was a little bit unclear as to, was it supposed to dip below the line, hit the line, or be just right above the line.
Right.
So that was a bit unclear, but we're not challenge production, so Dom and Cash won. So now that we've reached the end of the episode, this is the part where I bring up who got no confessionals this episode, who got no airtime, and there were 4 people, and those 4 were Azah, David, Enzo, and Desi. Now, for Ozza and David, this is their second of 3 episodes with 0 confessionals. Enzo, he is not getting much airtime. He got the very last confessional of episode 2. So for Enzo and Desi, this is their first. This was their first episode with no confessionals. Desi has really been featured a lot up to this point. So I'm not too particularly worried if there's a competitor that maybe has like one episode where they don't have anything. But if we're 3 episodes in and you have not gotten confessionals in 2 of them, production does not care about you. You are not making the end. Yeah, go ahead.
To be fair, I feel like when it comes to David, I feel like his is going to pick up real heavy once this Big Brother, once, like you said, the shoe drop. I feel like David is going to pick up real heavy. I don't know how much Oz is going to pick up, but I know David, I just feel like David is going to pick up real heavy. And who the other 2? Desi and Enzo.
Yeah.
Enzo, I feel like he's just not getting confessionals because Enzo's not really doing anything but competing. And same thing with that. And with Desi, I feel like she probably just didn't get no confessionals this episode because the last episode was all about Tiffany, them talking about Tiffany. So this episode, Desi became irrelevant because Tiffany's gone. So that's how I feel about those particular confessionals. Now, Oz, I don't know what's going on with that situation. Maybe, you know what I'm saying? Maybe, but she did get like heavy on episode 1. So maybe she will pick up, maybe she won't, but I don't know what's going on with that one.
I agree. I think Ozza, just based on these first 3 episodes, it's tough to imagine her as like one of the main storytellers of the season at this point, unless she just gets a lot in the next couple. I don't think she's necessarily going home next, but I can't imagine she's one of the heavy hitters that'll be in the finals. I think Desi will be around for a while. I agree. I think this was just a cool down episode for her. She really didn't have much to do with the strategy. I'm looking forward to seeing what she can do next. And Enzo, that's another tough one. I could see Enzo going far, but his game is all social anyway. So it's not a shock that he's very much behind the scenes. And there's still a lot of people left. Once we get down to like close to 20 or below, that's when we'll be seeing a lot more of these people.
Yeah, I do. Just based on the recap for the next episode, we do see Asa gets a confessional. So she does get some airtime next episode. And I agree with Bossy that I think David may probably have one episode where he gets like 5, 6, 7 confessionals.
Yeah.
I feel like David is going to have his moment, his time to shine, and then promptly get eliminated right after that. That's what I'm thinking.
I think David is going to have a huge storyline for some reason. Like my gut is telling me David's going to have a huge storyline when we get mid-season, when Big Brother and Survivor's halfway gone. If David's still there, I feel like David's going to get a huge camera time, all that. I feel like he's going to get all that mid-season. I think right now they're basing it on, the bigger personalities that went home earlier.
Yeah. And I do think there is the potential for, now that James is out, because James has had the biggest underdog story up to this point. Now that James is out, David is really a potential for who might have that underdog story. So maybe he's been quiet up to this point because there's going to be an underdog story picking up. So there is a chance at that. Desi, I'm not particularly worried about her not having a confessional this round, this episode. She's proven to be a great competitor, and she's gotten a lot of airtime up to this point. And I know Enzo, he's a very social competitor, he is playing a behind the scenes game. So I think that just because he's not the one driving the narrative and the focus of production, he's still a part of the season and he's still playing the game. Final thoughts about episode 3 and going forward into future episodes as we wrap up today's podcast.
This episode was the most boring out of the first 2 to me. Hopefully they get better, but this episode was really boring. Like I actually had to go back and watch this episode again today because I couldn't remember half the stuff that was going on. And that's sad when I can't remember it because I love the challenge.
There was there was a comment made at the very end that I forgot to mention. And this is why I love TJ. He's willing to roast, shade, whatever you want to say, the contestants. Unlike some other hosts are kind of more scared to. One of the words Dom used to describe Cash specifically was she's not serious. And what did TJ say after they won? It's a good thing you had a serious partner. And I was like, oh, production definitely fed TJ what Dom was saying, and he had that line prepared. So I was like, that was a great moment. No, I mean, it was a good episode. I agree with Bossy. It was definitely more status quo. We've been following the kind of James underdog storyline for 3 episodes now, and this is where it came to an end. So it was, we didn't get to see different storylines emerge because that was such a focus. But I'm excited for the future. It does suck to see James go. I was really rooting for him. He's basically one of us. I mean, he's played Live to Give. He's an LRG person. He got to live his dream of being on these shows, 2 of them. So it sucked to see him go, but I'm excited for the future.
Yeah, it definitely does suck to see James go, especially this early. But as Bossy mentioned, James got a ton of airtime.
Oh yeah.
If the Challenge USA is coming back for future seasons, I definitely believe James will also.
And I also think James will be back because James was like the only LGBT male on there. So they're going to need representation.
Oh, yeah.
So he'll be back.
Yeah. So I definitely think that. I will say the thing that got me the most excited about episode 3 was the preview for episode 4 and seeing that the challenge was trivia. So, next week's definitely going to be a fun episode because it is the trivia challenge. And we know from the Challenge MTV that we had a lot of silly, stupid, and ridiculous moments. So definitely going to be some entertaining fun there. Well, that is it for today's recap of the Challenge USA episode 3. I want to say thank you again, Parker, for joining us today and for providing a bit of your insight onto episode 3. So thank you again.
Thank you for having me. It was great.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Parker.
Thank y'all.
And then just a friendly reminder to please make sure to like, subscribe, and follow to the Live Reality Games channel. You never know which games are going to be running or casting, so please make sure to follow along. If you would like to join Bossy and I as a future guest on the Challenge USA recaps, please reach out to Bossy and I, and we'll definitely work to try and get that done and get you as a guest on the podcast. So Bossy and I will be back next week with another special guest to recap episode 4 of the Challenge USA. Until then, see you next week. Bye.
See ya.